Okay. So, welcome all again. In today's lecture, I wanted to ask you whether we should proceed ahead with the syllabus or we shall discuss the IA question paper. Yeah, please tell me, guys. Shall we move ahead with the syllabus or we shall discuss the IA question paper? Okay, some in the chat box says discuss IA questions. Okay, fine. Then these three messages I would consider as the voice of all students. So let's discuss the IA question paper. Let me share you the screen. I hope the question paper was easy. How did you feel? Anybody can unmute and tell me. How was the Was it too tough or average or very easy? Yeah, please. Meanwhile, I'll share the screen. Yeah, anybody? Was the paper very easy or moderate, average, or was really very difficult? Anybody? Yeah, Prajit.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, tell me.
Sir, after seeing paper, I was confused, sir. I mean, which one to write
So,
for 50
was
for
it
15
very
marks?
easy?
No, sir, for 15 marks, what all should write and all, sir.
Okay. So, how much to be
It was
written for
easy, sir.
those 15 marks was your doubt, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Some said in the chat box that moderate. Okay, fine. Okay, so we shall discuss that, like how much to be written for how many marks and so on, so those things. We will have the question paper. Let me open the question paper, right? So the instruction, whatever that I'll be giving, will not be only restricted to just IS, but they apply it for your final exams or semester exams also, right? So that always that remains the questions that how much to be written for a particular question, right? Sometimes what happens, you know the question very well. It might be your favorite question or the question which you have prepared very well, and you want to write everything about it that you know, right? But in that course, what happens is you end up writing too much which is not required and end up wasting that time, right? And the ultimate or the maximum marks that you can fetch is the maximum mark for that particular question itself, right? Nothing more than that you would score. So that always remains a question: how much to be written? What is the quantity, right? So definitely you have to look up for the marks that will be allotted for that particular question. So that tells a lot about how much to be written for that question. Right. For example, you can see that in question number 1A, it is a part of two questions, right? We have one simple question that is what is Python programming, and then followed by another question which is to write a Python program demonstrating the usage of integer, floating point, and string data types, right? So as you can see that the first question or the first part of this question A, it's a simple definition, right? So hardly a definition, how much would it carry? How much marks would it carry? You should be able to segregate or classify how much marks will be allocated. Definitely, when there are two questions, right? What is Python programming followed by this bigger question, then that doesn't mean that one question, the first question is 5 marks and another question is 5 marks. That makes 10 marks. It will not be like that, right? The depth of the answer required for this question is much more than what is required for this question. So you should uh, consider these factors when you segregate the marks allotted, or at least you should know how much marks, maximum marks that particular question can carry. So if you can see, there are three different data types here, that is integer, floating type, and string. Right. So you are supposed to demonstrate these three data type, right? So even if you consider two marks each, that makes 6 marks. And your Python program, right? That complete Python program, your structure or your main body, that will again carry marks. That will definitely carry marks, right? Because writing a perfect or a good Python program with proper syntax, proper definitions, proper uh, initialization and everything, main body, that will definitely carry some marks. So these three data types, 2 marks each, if you consider, and the main Python program, the whole structure, 2 marks again. That makes 8 marks of this particular question and 2 marks for this definition. This is just a definition. Might be sometimes it can be only 1 marks, or sometimes it can be 3 marks, or maximum 4 marks. But any definition cannot be asked for more than four, right? If you are asked to write a note on it, maybe write a note on Python programming or something like that, then it might carry something like 6 marks, 4 to 6 marks, you can say, right? But here it's just a definition. What is Python programming? So you can consider that maybe 1 mark or 2 marks. So I have actually considered 2 marks here. And as you can see here, there are three different data types. So even if you consider 2 marks for each to demonstrate in the program, and along with the main body or the main structure of the Python program, will carry again 2 marks. So that makes this whole 10 marks question as 2 marks for this definition and 8 marks for this whole program. So 2 plus 8. So this is, I mean, this evaluation, this type of segregation, you should be able to do on your own, considering the marks allocated and the depth of the information that is required to put forward those important aspects for the concept that has been asked in the question, right? So moving ahead, okay, let me ask you guys, right? What do you mean by Python? What is Python programming according to you? So I haven't, first of all, I haven't checked all the answer script. Just yesterday the test is over, so I have not checked all of them, but I've gone through some of them. So most of you have written good. I mean, the IA, as I can make out from your answer script. I felt uh, the answer script which I have seen randomly. So most of them have done good. So I assume that whole of class must have done good. So can anybody tell me what is Python programming? It shouldn't be really difficult. Yeah, please. Before I picking up randomly, I want volunteers to come up and answer whatever, even if whatever thing that you have written in your IA or anything apart from it, that is fine. What do you think about Python programming? What is Python programming according to you? See, if you guys don't speak up, then I have to maybe randomly select few people. So I would first give the ball in your court. Okay. So any volunteers that want to answer that? It's not a really difficult. Is it really difficult? What is Python programming? We have already discussed. You have already prepared for the I. You have already written the I. Yeah, come on. Anybody? Okay, I want it to be interaction session. I don't want you to be putting into the chat box, wasting time in typing. Instead, you can just unmute your mic and you can tell me. Siddhi, okay, Siddhi. Yeah, whatever you have is just written in the chat box. Yeah. Siddhi, you can unmute your mic and you can tell me whatever that you have. You can tell the class whatever you have written in the chat box. That's right. See, it was your guys' suggestion that discussion on first I question paper, right? So discussion can happen uh, when both the sides are active, right? It shouldn't be a one-way lecture. Instead, it's a discussion, right? Yeah, Siddhi, the class is waiting for you. Yeah, whatever you have written in the chat box, you can just convey it to your classmates.
So Python is nothing but programming language, and it interprets software that use software code and performs instructions.
Okay. Good. So as he mentioned, as she mentioned that it's nothing but the Python is a programming language, right? So and what it does it interprets the software that reads the source code and performs its functions or some instructions which are given to them and performs those tasks, right? So what has to be written is nothing new here. You all know what is Python or what is programming, right? And Python programming is nowhere much different from regular programming. Python is just another language. But the question here is not what is Python, it is what is Python programming. So there is not much difference in a regular programming, any other programming language. Here, just the language is different, but the programming, the concept of programming remains the same. So even if you know the basic definition of programming, you can answer this question of what is Python programming. There is no anything extra to it. Python is just a language, but programming, as you know, what is programming? It is just the simple instructions given to the machine to perform a particular tasks, right? So any raw definition, as long as it fits into what can be called as a programming, is accepted for this definition, right? Then the second part of the question A, question number 1A, again that write your own Python program to demonstrate the usage of integer, floating point, and string data type. So as we have seen few example when we discussed this data types, different data types, we saw few examples wherein we took some integers and we saw how can we get an error if we don't give exact data type which is expected, right? Similarly with the floating point or integer or a string. So how can you demonstrate in a program? You can write a simple program which, let's say, for example, your own program. Let me take an example like a program which can uh, take the age from the user. Let's say we make a program which accepts the age of a user. So if it is an integer, let's say integer, the user might enter a value, let's say anything 20 years or 22, right? It's an integer. And let's say how can we make a floating point data type here with the input as age? We can ask the user to give the months also. So for example, 20 years and let's say 2 months. So 20.2 can be a floating point for that, right? And so on for the string also. For string, maybe you can expect the age from the user in form of a string, that is nothing but in form of statement, that is in words, right? So 20 years and 2 months, something like that. So that can be one example, right? That can be one your own example to demonstrate this data type. There can be many more examples. You can consider the any price value, right? Price of a product, or you can consider anything, any fractional data, or any integer data, rational numbers. There are so many examples. So any one example that is your own example is what is uh, expected here to write a full-fledged program which can demonstrate these three data types, right? So let us see what we have discussed in the class, right? So we have these data types wherein we first defined it. So definition was not expected, not required here in this case. But as you can see, here are a few common data types. For integer, it starts with negative numbers, all the real numbers, right? Minus 2, all the positive. So you can take any example. There is no restriction with that. That's why I have said your own Python program, right? And similarly with the floating point numbers and strings. So like example I gave, you can simply write a program which can expect the age of the user. So definitely when it is integer, it can definitely not a negative number, but something which is a integer number, right? It can be 0 or any number, but a whole number. But floating point number, it can be, like I said, if you are taking a age of a user in months also, then you can simply say like 20.2. So that point 2 can be the months. And strings, as I said, it can be in the form of words, right? Another example can be any price of any particular product, right? So any particular product cannot be negative. So a negative integer will not be into picture here, but it can be either a whole price, that is, let's say 50 rupees, something like that, and it can be a floating point also, like 50.5, or let's say 100.50, 100.50, something like that. So it can be a floating point MRP also, and it can be in strings also, right? 1020 rupees. So there are many different examples. Any of your example or any of the example which is of your own will be much appreciated here, and accordingly the marks will be given. Okay. Right. Now, what are operators? Right. Okay. Before discussing further, there's one more point that had come into my mind, that I have seen few answer script wherein they have spent a lot of time in answering the other questions also. By other, I mean the or part. Right. So, in the final exam as well as in the IAs, so whenever you feel like you have attempted the full one full part of a particular question, then there is actually no need to write the or question. Instead, you can spend that time or invest that time in answering those questions which you have attempted in a better manner, right? You can add more content to it or add a better dimension or any particular point that you have missed for that particular question. You can add on to that question instead of attempting an or question, because I have seen people who have written a full-fledged good answer for particular question, then they have again written the answer for the or part of it. So unless and until you have time for it and you really want to, like you are not sure about, you have attempted it in a perfect way and you want to give it a try to try for the or question, then that in that case that's fine. But you shouldn't, half-heartedly attempt a particular question and then again move on to the or part of it also, right? So I have seen few answer script wherein a part of it has been answered from the first question, and part of it has been answered from the second question. So eventually you will end up having half of the marks here in the first question and half of the marks in the half. So you're not doing any kind of improvement or no benefit that you are getting. Right? Instead, if you spend that time which you have invested in attempting the half of the other question or question, instead of that, if you spend that time in making your previous questions answer more perfect, then that would be beneficial for you, right? So instead of getting, let's say, out of 50, out of 25, let's say getting 15 or 17, roughly half. So instead of attempting half-hearted question for the next or question, you can put more effort and make your answers better for the first question itself, which will eventually fetch you maybe 20 or 21 marks instead of 17 marks, right? So that is one tendency I would say I have seen in the few of the answer scripts which I have gone through. right? So please avoid that here as well as in the final exams as well, because eventually you'll not be getting benefited out of it. You'll be getting half marks in both the or questions, but maybe 1 mark difference anywhere, and that will not result much. So instead of that, if you put those same efforts into one question, that will fetch you nearly full marks, right? So moving on, the second part, that is the question number 1B. What are operators, right? So we saw multiple operators. Again, same thing here. As you can see, there this particular question, which is for 15 marks, has been divided in actually 3 parts. There are 3 questions, you can say. So one being simple definition. Again, what is an operator, right? What are operators? Just one definition. So 1 or maximum 2 marks for this. Then writing a whole program, a Python program to demonstrate the usage of mixing Boolean and comparison operators, right? So mixing Boolean and comparison operators, you have to write one common program which can demonstrate this, both the operators, right? And ultimately, what are the element of flow control? This is the, you can say, a sub part in this equation. What are the elements of flow control? So we saw different elements of flow control. So you can simply write few of them. What are few elements of flow control, which can be roughly for 5 marks, you can say. So if I divide this whole question out of 15 marks, we can simply say that the definition might be for maximum 2 marks, right? And the demonstration with writing the Python program for this Boolean as well as comparison operator can be for 8 marks, you can say. So that makes 10 marks and the remaining 5 marks for this. So you should know what how much content is required for that particular question depending on the marks, right? And your preparation tells a lot about these things. So when you prepare for, let's say, for a particular question, let's say for mixing Boolean and comparison operator. So when you prepare really thoroughly enough for these topics, you will automatically come to know how much marks that particular topic is worth having it, right? So when your preparations are strong, that will indirectly will tell you how much should I write for that particular question. When there is no much content or there is not much to be discussed about that particular topic or that particular question, then definitely you can reduce your content and focus on the other. For example, let's say assume that the element of flow control question is much more lengthier question than mixing Boolean and comparison operator. Just assume. Then in that case, it makes sense that element of flow control can be for 10 marks and the mixing of Boolean and comparison operator might be just for 5 marks or so, right? So just an example that I'm giving. So when your preparations are strong, when you know what exactly to be written for a particular topic, then you will indirectly will come to know how much to be written for that topic and how much worth that question can be, for how many marks that question can be asked. So in fact, if your preparations are good, you can predict few questions which can come to your and come in your examination depending on what questions have been asked in your previous examination, right? So questions from previous question papers are also very important, but again, very important aspect here for us right now is this particular syllabus scheme, that is 2018 scheme is a new scheme, and if you have gone through the previous syllabus, or those syllabus copies are available on the VTU website, you can fetch it out. So when you go through the previous schemes, that is 2017 scheme or even 2015 scheme, there is a lot of difference. Okay, so mind you, there is a lot of difference. Whatever the questions you see in the previous year question papers, those are depending on those previous schemes, previous syllabuses. They might not be really applicable for you for your examinations, considering your new scheme, 2018 scheme. Okay, so please modify your way of preparation and your you know the expectations that you have for the questions in the final examination. So definitely we are here to help you. I would definitely help you with the type of question that can be asked, right? So by the end of every module, or maybe when we start with the revision sessions, we will discuss few of the important questions which can definitely be asked in the final examination. I will provide you with the set of questions, you can say question bank, which are worthy enough to be asked in the final exams. So not to worry about it, but this is just for the caution which I have already put up in the Google Classroom before your eye, that don't completely rely on your previous year question papers, because the whole syllabus, the whole pattern was different back then, and now it is different. So we have to stick to the our syllabus. So whatever has been discussed in the class, whatever we do here in the class will be the best suitable preparation for your scheme, is what I can say, right? So let's move ahead and discuss more what are to be expected answers for these questions. So what are operators, right? So anybody, what are operators? Right, we saw different operators, right? We saw a Boolean. Before we move on to operators, we discussed what is a Boolean value. Then we discussed what are Boolean operators. Then we discussed what are other types of operators that we have. Then how to mix with these combinations of these operators, right? Just to give you a hint, we saw Boolean operators, we saw comparison operators, and so on. So anybody, what is an operator? This is the term is not new to you. Yeah, please. Before I cherry pick few guys, I would suggest some volunteers to come up. And also, whatever we are discussing here, whatever the important uh, tips you feel that are important, please make a note of it, because you might remember it only for a duration, but you tend to forget it when you really start preparation for your examinations, right? So please keep a note of these things. I think, yeah.
Operators are special symbols used for arithmetic and logical operations in Python.
Very good. Not just in Python, in general, if you talk about operators, they are what are they are just special characters or special symbols, which has some meaning to it. Like for example, a plus symbol is basically used for addition. It's a simple operator. Now there are different types of operators, right? There can be binary operator, there can be Boolean operator. So for our syllabus, let's just stick to what has been, what is there for our syllabus. So, in our current chapter or module, the syllabus, the portion that we had for I, according to that, we just have two kind of operators, that is Boolean and comparison operators, right? So Boolean, it can be either yes or no. These are the Boolean operators, right? Or true or false value, what we say. So any particular expression which results into a true value or a false value, that particular expression is, you can call it as a expression that results into a Boolean operator. A simple example, let me show you the example that we uh, earlier saw. Let me go to the operators. I think it's before this. So just to give an example, like I said, like Boolean operators, it can be either true or false value, and at the same time, let's say comparison operators. Okay, let me open the index itself. Right, comparison operators can be what? Can you anybody give me example of comparison operators?
Double equal to, not equal to,
Very good, very good. Yeah. So greater than or equal to or less than or equal
less.
to those symbols, right? So there can be comparison. So what we do is basically we just compare one operand with another operand. The operand can be anything. It can be a number or it can be a value or anything, right? So let me yes. So before discussing about the operators, we saw what are the Boolean values. So as I said, Boolean can be either two values, that is either true or false. So Boolean operators and comparison operators, how do we make use of? So this is a simple table which we have seen, equal to, like you mentioned, right? Equal to, not equal to, and these less than, greater than, and so on. So these are just a simple comparison operator which tells us about a comparison between two operands, right? So another example of, let's say, Boolean is this. For example, true and true. This cannot be an appropriate example, I would say, but this is still an example. But just to give you a better example, let's say this. So this is a perfect example of a mixing Boolean and a comparison operator. So let's say 4 less than 5, which we all know is true. But we are making use of another comparison operator, you can say, right? And operator here. And there's one more instruction or one more expression attached to it. And then we are comparing whether both these two conditions are true or false, right? Then we can say that a Boolean operator and a comparison operator both has been used here in this case. Similarly here, 1 is equal to 2 or 2 is equal to 2. So as you know how an OR operator operates, uh, either when the either of the two is true, the answer, overall answer will be the true itself. So this is just a simple example, and you have to write a program for it, right? So that is a simple definition you can mention. You can write in your own any raw definition according to you, which mostly suits the exact concept of operator will be accepted here. Not a problem. Then a Python program demonstrating the mixing Boolean and comparison operator like I just showed, and the element of flow control. So what are the different elements of flow control? We saw different conditions, block of code, right? Uh, what how that particular block of code looks like, what are the important keywords, what is a block in that. So simple example we saw, like if there is a if conditions, right? Element of flow, let's say condition, we have if condition, and inside that if condition, after that particular condition is checked, we have a block for that particular if statement or that if block. So this, which I have highlighted here, is nothing but the block or the block of code for if condition. So likewise, you can take your own example and you can demonstrate the element of flow control. So which was basically for 5 marks. Okay. So the or part of it, I've made sure again simpler questions have been asked. What is the role of Python ideally, right? So we have discussed. We had a session on how to install the Python ideally. What is Python ideally? What it does? What is interactive shell? What is the role of interactive shell? Or how interactive shell executes instructions as well as expressions. And also we saw how interactive shell can be made use to create a file, a particular Python file, whole program, and how it can be executed, right? So the question is how or what is the role of that Python ideally, right? So anybody want to give a try? What can be the role of Python ideally? We already saw, right? What is Python ideally? Okay, first of all, yeah, what is ideally stands for anybody? That full form will itself tell you about the role of it. Yeah, please, anybody. What is Python ideally? See, I want class to be interactive. Please don't put it in the chat box. This is an interaction. You can unmute your mic and you can answer it. As you said, it should be a discussion, right?
So it's integrated development and learning environment.
Good. And what is the role of it?
So it can be used to execute a simple statement
Okay.
or to create and modify Python scripts and also.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, what is actually the role of Python ideally? It just creates an environment wherein you can execute all the the code which is in a Python language. So, ideally, like Yogita said, it stands for Integrated Development and Learning Environment. So, as it said, it's a integrated as in you can perform various different types of tasks in a particular in the same platform, right? So it's an integrated development as well as learning environment. So development, the reason why development, because whatever the instruction that you or the expressions or the program that you write, which is definitely in this case in Python, so those particular program are used to understand few particular task and put a solution or gives a solution for it. So this particular environment, it use the code which we have given to come up to a solution or any solution of a particular problem or a task, and gives you, the solution or answer part of it. So any particular environment, irrespective of language, any particular environment, what it does, it helps us to set it that platform. It gives you a platform wherein you can perform few set of tasks, right, with the appropriate code. In this case, it should be the code which is written in Python, right? So if you move on to another any other IDE, let's say for a Java, so you might have to do the same task, but the code which has been written in Java, right, or JavaScript. So any development environment, it gives us, it gives you the platform to set up the code, to write the code, to bring out the solution for a particular task, right? So this is just a raw definition that I'm putting because I want you to understand that there cannot be single statement which can define these things. So as long as your concept is right, your understanding is right, you can define it in your own words. That is well and good and will be accepted. So it's not really the need that you have to define according to the textbook itself. Textbook definition can give you an idea, right, which can help you understand, but you can write it in your own words. So those who have written in their own words also, which means the same, uh, those answers are also accepted. So let me show you. Let me go back and show you what all things that we did with respect to Python. Ideally, right? We let's not get much into it. Installation part and now, I think you all are familiar now, right? So here is what the starting ideally, that is the Python interpreter is the software that runs your Python programs. The interactive development environment, for the Python ideally it is interactive development and learning environment, right? Okay, so this was the syntax, or you can say the opening, or you can say the initial state of how an interactive shell would look like. So these examples, let's not get much into it. You already know these things. I already told you the important role of what the ideally does, right? Okay, so the second part in it, so you can say that this particular rule of a Python ideally might be for again 2 or maximum 3 marks, right? So that depends. So if you have really touched upon all the important things, you might get 3 marks, or maybe uh, if you have just written it in 1 or 2 statement, you might get 2 marks. That depends. Let's see that. Uh, but the second part of the same question, that is question number 2A, which is to write your own Python program to demonstrate the working of different types of expressions. Right. Now, what are these expressions? Anybody? We already saw what are expressions, right? What is expression? Let me show you what we have done in the class. Yeah, I've already given you the definition of expression here. Okay, anybody, what is an expression? In simple terms, not just only with respect to Python. In general, what is an expression?
Combination of number and operators.
Okay, combination of number and operators. Anybody else want to add to it or have a different
Com-
opinion?
combination of values, variables, and operators.
Values, variables, and operators. Very good. Values can be numbers, integers, or real anything. Value can be anything, right? And operators. Good. Anything else? Anybody else?
It is a combination of operators and operands which does specific tasks.
Specific task. Very good. So it's a combination of operators as well as operands. Now these operators, as you said, it can be the special symbols, right? Like the plus sign or negative sign, and so many different operators. Modulus operator. And operands can be anything. Operands can be integer values, can be floating point values, it can be two strings, right? Uh, so that depends. But an expression will definitely have few operands and few operators. So as long as we have few operators and few operands which are performing a specific uh, task, which are in a form of instructions, can be called as an expression. So anything in a particular language can be called as an expression. For example, not necessarily that we need to have two operands or two operators, even just one integer, let's say a number 2 or number 5. If I just put into my terminal, let me open uh, Python ideally and demonstrate you this. So even a single number or a single letter, that can be an expression. For example, let's say 5. Okay, this 5 is also an expression. Okay, so if I hit enter, it will simply return me back that expression, right? So if I say, let's say capital A, so if I just hit enter, it shows an error that it is nothing. I mean, it's not defined. So, uh, but it is an expression, right? Expression, it doesn't have meaning. That is why we are getting an error, that it doesn't have a meaning, it is not defined what is it, right? But it's an expression. So similarly, anything that can be written into this development environment, it the that particular development environment considered that thing as a expression. So this is a simple example. Let's say 2 plus 2, as I said, it's an expression. So in Python, 2 plus 2 is called an expression, which is the most basic kind of programming instructions in the language. So as few of you mentioned, expressions consist of values, which is in this case is 2, and operators, which is plus here, and they can always evaluate down to a single value, right? So for our example, in this example, let's say when I put 5 or let's say 7, and when I hit it, it is an expression which is actually a single value, and evaluating it to again a single value, right? So it still fits into the definition of an expression, like you see here, right? A single value with no operator is also considered as an expression. Simple example is this. Right, so you can demonstrate any of your program, there are so many wide varieties of program that you can write. Your own program is what is appreciated here. You are supposed to write your own Python program to demonstrate working of this particular expression. So you do addition, subtraction, multiplication, or concatenation, or replication, anything that you want to do, but it has to be an expression. So basically, whatever program you write here, whatever program that you choose to write here, will be demonstrating the working of an expression here. So in short, any Python program that you write here will be accepted, because any Python program will definitely have an expression. So that's how simple these questions were, right? I want to the point that I want to make here is that the reason or the psychology behind this questions, right? The question might, if you really look upon this technical words, you might get confused, right? But if you really have the holistic view, these are very basic questions, right? For example, like I said, to demonstrate, write the program to demonstrate integer floating point and string data. So a simple example can be, like I said, to accept the age of an user. That's it. It's just 4 or 5, maximum 4 or 5 lines of code. Not even that. If you can put it in 2 to 3 lines also. So that's how simple it was. Just to write a program. If I simply reframe this question to write the program, write your own Python program to accept age of a person and give the output. You can write it, right? It's a simple program. So same program will also be accepted in this case for this particular question. So you have to understand what is the background of it, and not just literally the terms which are used. Of course, these terms are important, but you have to understand the what what is the actual question, or what is the concept that this particular question is addressing, right? For example, here expressions. There are so many examples, right, from this particular example which I just showed you, right? 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Now this is just an example of an expression. It is equally easy to put these operations into a program, right? You have to just write a program, a Python program, a main body, few initializations maybe, and we can do this. Simple addition is also accepted in this case. Just that to write your Python program to demonstrate different types of expressions, right? If I replace this whole question with write a Python program to perform addition, it will be equally simple, right? The same program is what is expected here, can be written here, right? So that will fetch you around 10 marks, which is 2 to 3 marks for this roll off ideally, and around 7 to 8 marks for this simple program to write maybe addition or multiplication, something like that. That is up to you. That is why I have left the question I mean, I've left these level of difficulty for you to decide, right? So I've asked to write your own Python program to demonstrate the working of the expression. Now that depends on you, what kind of expression that you are want to demonstrate here. It can be simple mathematical operations also, or it can be advanced expressions, right? So that depends on you. Okay, so next part, what are flow control statements? We just saw what are the different elements of flow control, but what are different flow control statements? Anybody? We saw a few 4 to 5 different flow control statements, right? Yeah. What are flow control statement? Or let me put it other way, what are the statements which define the flow of the program, which controls the flow of the program? Anybody? Yeah, anybody? What are flow control statements? And this next lecture is also continued by me, so don't leave the meeting. So Priyanka ma'am's lecture will be continued by me. I can see some 2-3 people have left the meeting. So please inform them that this lecture is also continued, and you can ask them to join back. Yeah, meanwhile, anybody, please, what are flow control statements?
If, else, elif.
Okay, but what are these? These are the example you said, right? These are the flow control statement. But what according to you is a flow control statement?
Which can decide which instruction to execute under which condition.
Okay, very good. So as the term itself says, right, flow control statement. So these are what? These are the statements which controls the flow of the program. To be very precise, these are the statements which selects a few set of instructions which are to be executed first or on priority basis, depending on the condition, which to be satisfied or to not to be satisfied, and then decide which part of the program or which part of the code to be executed first, and then move to which part of the remaining code. So these are the statements which decide the overall flow of the program. Right? So there are few more people who are putting into the chat box that conditional statements, looping statements. Okay, and as Rajit said rightly, right? A few examples that can be a simple if statement. If is a conditional statement, right? Then we have else, if else, and so on. So we have so many other conditions. We have saw a few examples of continue statements, break statements, right? So let me take you to those sections, right? Yeah. So in chapter 2, we discussed about the flow control statements and how a complete flow of a particular program can be handled. So we understood it more in a more better way when we saw the flow chart for those conditional statements, right? So here are, let me show you, yeah. So here are a few of the conditional statements. So a simple explanation of or your own definition of what is this control statements, flow control statements would fetch you around 2 marks. Let me show you the question paper again. So out of 15, let's say this maybe for 2 marks, 3 different flow control statements, which can be again for let's say 8 marks, right? Because you are supposed to draw the flow chart also. So 3 different flow control statements with example and flow chart will fetch you around 8 marks, and the remaining 5 marks is to demonstrate for the importing modules, which is actually nothing but a 2 or maybe 3 line of code, right? How to import a module. We already discussed it, what are modules and how to import it. So let's understand this first. What is expected in this flow control statement and their flow charts. So these can be few of the flow control statement that you could have mentioned. That is if statement with flowchart with an example, simple example, right? This example, these are just the isolated example, simple separate example which has been given here. But what is expected in the program or the in the I answers what was to create a Python program. Right? It was to write a Python program. Okay, in this case, it was not the program. It was just to give an example and the flowchart for it. So that is all is expected. So you can give a simple example like this and the associated flowchart. So we have if statement, else statement, elif statement with the flowcharts, right? We saw few of the cases wherein how in case of multiple elif, few statements never get executed, right? So we saw, for example, this, like we had an example of Vampire 2 program, right? Wherein you can see this particular condition is never executed. So this path or this flow of the program will never get executed. So we have while loop statements. These are also conditional statements, flow control statements. We saw an example of an annoying while loop, right? Annoying while loop is nothing but the it is kind of infinite loop, which will ask you in this case in our example which you took, it was just to prompt uh, the user to type his name unless he or she enters the right name. So it was kind of an infinite loop. You can see this was the flow chart. Then we had break statement, then continue statement, and so on. So a lot of examples. You can write any three of them, any three different flow control statement with examples and their respective flow chart will definitely fetch you around 8 marks. Again, 2 marks for the definition of flow control statements, 8 marks for uh, the three different flow control statements with example and their associated flowcharts, and ultimately remaining 5 marks is to just demonstrate how you can import modules. So let me show you that also. How do we import modules? All right. So it was just a simple keyword import, right? Yeah. So you have to demonstrate the working of this importing module, how a particular module is imported, right? So any simple example like this, which is preferably your own example, would be pretty much appreciated and will fetch you around 5 marks, right? So just 2 or 3 line of code will fetch you around 5 marks. So let's move ahead to the part B. Before that, let me put a message. So you can ask your other friends who have left the meeting room to join them back, because ask them to join back because the lecture is continued. Okay. So meanwhile, let me put a message in the group. Meanwhile, I would request anybody, yeah, who can answer what is functions, what are functions. Please, anybody. What are functions? In general, yeah, any of your definition, any raw definition is accepted.
It is a block of code which runs when it is called, or it is a mini program within a program.
Okay, it can be a block of code which is run and then whenever it is called. Very good. Or it is a small program or a sub program within a program, right? So, uh, very well put up, and you can say that is near to the exact definition of the function, right? So, in Python, there is no new, there is no other definition to it. There is the functions remains function. The only difference is how do we define a particular function, how do we invoke or call a particular function, and how do you handle a function, right? Only those differences are there. But the question, as you can see, let me show the question here again, that it was not that how are functions different in Python than compared to other languages. It was not like that. It was a simple definition of what is a function, what are functions. So any particular definition, irrespective of whether it's a Python function or a Java function, anything, would be really uh, appreciated, and answer in your own words is much appreciated. Fine. So as long as you have defined what exactly is function, which uh, gives us the understanding of the real meaning of a function, it will be accepted. Okay. The next part of it says that write a Python program to define a function that computes area of a triangle and give output. Okay, and you can read the input values from the user. So input, what will be the input for the area of, let's say if you want to create a program for area of a triangle, what will be the inputs? Yeah, anybody? What are these inputs that you are supposed to read from the user? Please answer fast so that we can wind up fast. Anybody, please, before? Okay, now I think I have to. Okay, let me ask Shefali. Yeah, Shefali, please unmute your mic and tell me what can be these two values which we are asking the user to enter, or we are taking the values from the user. The question is write a Python program to define a function that computes area of a triangle, right? And give output. We are supposed to read the input from the user. What are the inputs for an area of a triangle? Shefali.
So length, breadth, and height.
Length, breadth, and height. Okay, so fine. There can be three values which is required for the area of a triangle. But what is the area of the formula for area of a triangle?
Half into base into height.
Yes. So in that case, we require only two values, right? Not three values. Am I right, Shefali?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So length, breadth, and height might be required for a three-dimensional figure, but let's say for a simple triangle, a 2D triangle, two-dimensional triangle, we may require only two values according to the formula of area of triangle, that is half into base into height, right? So we require only two values to be entered from the user, that is base and the height of that particular triangle. So having said that, that's not the concern. Your main question is to demonstrate, write the program which can accept this the program in the Python to define a function for that, right? So you have to define a function which can take these two values as the argument or the input parameters, right? So whatever the input that you take from the user, those are nothing but the input which will be given to our function as the arguments, right, or the parameters. And in return, the function will give us the area of that particular triangle. So you are supposed to write the function for it. Now the question, the main area of focus here will be how are you defining that function, declaring that function, and how are you calling that particular function. So it is again 3 to 4 lines of code, but it will fetch you around 8 marks here, right? So what are
Excuse me, sir.
functions? Yeah.
Sir, in that triangle program, can we like accept inputs in the function itself instead of passing parameters? And then we can call it and at the final line of code. Like
I didn't get. Can you repeat once again?
like in the function itself, before like can we accept input in the function itself? Like we define a
So,
function inside.
so inside the function, you are giving a print statement asking the user to input the values.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is fine. But have you defined a function?
Yes. First I
It
define the
shouldn't.
function.
Uh, the whole motive is you should have a function placed for that and not a regular Python program, because this is a simple program wherein you can take value using a simple printf statement from the user, and you can simply put a formula and give the output. But the main focus here is whether you have defined a function. Now, in that function, whether you are accepting the value from the user or you are passing the value to the function as a parameter, that is up to you, because that is not mentioned in the question. So, as long as you are defining a function, as long as you have written a function which computes the area of a triangle, your answer will be accepted. No issues.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Whether you pass it as a argument or a parameter to the function, or inside function you are accepting from the user, that is fine.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move ahead with question 3b. Now, what are local and global scope variables? Just the definition. And the second part is write your own Python program to demonstrate the working of local as well as global scope variable for 4 different situations. So we have, when we have learned this topic, we have learned various situations, right? So I think by now you know what is global and local and global scope variables. So I'll not come up with a definition of this. So anything which is restricted to be within the scope of particular function of a program, that can be a local, or a variable which is defined at a global level outside the scope, outside the program, or outside the function, it has a global scope. So this is rough definition, you can put it in your own words. But the second part of it, which is most important, that is 4 different situations wherein you can demonstrate the local and the global scope variables. Or in other words, how can we say that when local variable come into picture and when global scope variables come into picture? So we had various examples, right? We saw an example wherein we have same variable, or maybe the variable which is having same name, but one being a local variable and another being a global variable. So if you remember, we took an example of a variable called x, right? So we had 2 variables named x. One was a local scope and another was a global scope. So let me better show you the whatever we have discussed. Right. So local and global scope variable, here is a simple definition of it. That is a parameter and variable that are assigned in a called function are said to be exist in that function's local scope. And opposite to it, the variables which are assigned outside all the functions are said to be existing in the global scope of it. So that defines the uh, local scope of a local variable and a global scope for a global variable. So So these are a few important aspects which you need to consider while these are the scopes matters for several reasons. Why we can say that a scope for a particular a global scope variable or a local scope variable, how those that particular scope matters, right? So if you can recall, a global scope is actually the global scope variable will always be there throughout the execution of the program, but on the flip side, the local scope variable will only be created, or the local scope only come into picture when that particular function is created or called, right? So a local scope for that particular variable is created whenever a function which is having that variable is called. For example, let me demonstrate this. Yeah. So these were the four different situations, right? The situation like the local variable cannot be used in global scope. We saw an example. A local scope cannot use variables in other local scope, which is fair enough. For example, this we have a function called spam and function called bacon, and in the function spam we have x, which is assigned to value 99, and we have another variable which is with the same name x, which is assigned to value 0, but this egg which is value 0 is only restricted to the local scope of function bacon, and this variable x, which is a local variable, its scope will be only restricted to function span. Right, so anything outside it will not be used. So local scope, this egg which is having 99 cannot be used or replaced with this egg. Right. So local scope cannot use variables in other local scopes. The third example or the third situation is global variables can be read from local scope. Right. Since it is a global scope, it can be actually be used anywhere in the whole program. The fourth situation is local and global variables with the same name. So we defined three variables, two out of which were local to two different functions, and another variable which is with the same name, x, but it was a global variable. So as you can see here, we already saw an example, spam function having an egg variable, which is a local variable egg. Bacon function also have a variable egg, which is again a local variable egg. And we have eggs again, which is a global declaration, right? And when we print it, it will print global. So when this whole program is executed, as you guys have already, I think few of you have answered when we saw this program, when we discussed this in the lecture, the output for this, how it will be, the program execution will start from here, and the eggs, which is a global declaration, will be assigned with the value global. It's a string value. That the function bacon is called. When the bacon is called, it will print the eggs here, which is the bacon local, right? So it will print bacon local. Then inside the bacon function, the spam function is called, and therefore the flow of the control shift to this function, thereby printing spam local, right? So first we'll get bacon local, then spam local, and then again when the spam function is executed, the control or the flow of the program will again shift to this statement, which will print bacon local again. So it will be till at this time we'll have bacon local, then spam local, then bacon local again, And then when this whole program is terminated, we have the flow of the control here, thereby printing print global, right? And that's how we see the output like this: bacon local, spam local, bacon local, and global. So the whole idea here to demonstrate how two different variables which are of same name, but one being the local variable and other being the global variable, how they can be uh, accessed or retrieved. So these were the three important aspects we need to consider. That is, the variable name egg that exists in the local scope of spam is called. The variable name eggs that exist in the local scope of bacon is called. And the variable name x, again same name, the third variable with the same name, exist in the global scope, right? So this was that global scope. So I think that's all to be written in the program. You have to just frame this whole thing into your own Python program, and you can demonstrate this. So if you consider the definition of local scope as well as global scope for 2 and 2, let's say 4 marks, then remaining 11 marks will be for the writing the program to demonstrate that local and global scope. Okay, so anybody, any doubts so far? Anything that anything you have done in your eye and you want to have clarification over that? Okay, if there are no questions, let's move on to the second part, that is the or part of the part B. Is question number 4. Question number 4 was the module 2. All right, and uh, since the last lecture, the previous lecture before that is the problem wherein we discussed about the tic-tac-toe problem, right? So that was, the lecture was not recorded, hence I have not asked it for the I. The portion was excluded from the I. But lot of basic definitions and basic syntax is what has been asked from the module 2 for question number 4. Right. So right from the definition of what is a list data type, right? How is list different from dictionaries, or how dictionaries are different from list? So I have restricted to very simple questions from the module 2. So again, if you consider this whole thing for 10 marks and defining the list data type, let's say for 2 marks, and writing your own Python program which can demonstrate the concatenation, replication, slicing, and sorting. This 4 things may be for 8 marks. So 2 marks each you can consider it. So that gives you hint that when you have 4 concepts being asked, you can say that uh, maybe they can either be for 1 mark or 2 marks, but definitely not for 1 mark here, because the overall marks have been allotted for this question is 10 marks, right? So you can consider 2 mark each. That makes this part of the question as 8 marks, and the definition of list data type as 2 marks. So list, anybody want to define what is a list? Yeah, anybody? What is a list? Okay, I think I have to cherry pick few guys. Okay, Shivu, tell me. Shivu.
So list is a collection and which can be changed.
A collection of what? Yeah, Shiv. Collection of what? You're very right. It's a collection. It's a collection of what? It's a collection which can be changeable. You said it right. But what is that collection? Collection of what?
So collection of characters.
Okay. ठीक है. Fair enough. Anybody else want to add to it?
A list is a value that contains multiple value in ordered sequence.
Very good. So a better definition would be that a list is a collection of values. Those values can be into the order, which are into an ordered sequence. And as Shivu said, it can be changeable. These values can to change, or they can be modified or replaced, right? So basically they are mutable. That was the other part of the question. If you see the next question, that is uh, in question number 4B, write a note on mutable and immutable data types. So that gives you the answer itself, right? Mutable are those which can be changed. For example, list data type. List data type is a collection of sequence or in ordered sequence values, right? Probably similar type of values. It can be other values. For example, it can be a list of or a collection of integer values. It can be a collection of strings, or it can be a collection of anything, right? Combination of strings or integers and floating points also. So it's a list is a collection of different types of values which are in ordered sequence and which can be changed, which can be modified, or can be replaced, which makes the list data type as mutable data type. And unlike dictionaries, what are dictionaries? It is exactly, it might be few things can be similar as lists, but there are differences. Like dictionaries can have a sub list also. It can have a dictionary which can have its own dictionary. Also, the values in the dictionary, they might not necessarily be in ordered sequence, right? And the values, whichever we define it into a dictionary, they cannot be changed, right? So that makes the dictionary data type as immutable data type. So if you know what is list and what is dictionary, you can answer both of these questions, right? So now the question, the other important aspect of this question is to write a program to demonstrate the concatenation, replication, slicing, and sorting. So, like I said, a list is a ordered sequence, right? So sorting is again easier. Slicing. Let me show an example. We had various example, right? Wherein we saw how concatenation can be done. Simple example can be like name of a person and age of a person. So which is into the list, the key and the value. All right, the key can be the name of the person, value can be the age of that person. So key value pair will complete a list. So let's say how can we concatenate it? Let's say we print the statement that age of, let's say, a name Shiv is that particular value again. So but this can be done using a simple plus symbol, plus operator, which is used for concatenation, right? And let's say I want to replicate it. How can I replicate? By using the multiplication symbol. So let's say I want to replicate that age of Shiv is so and so. This has to be printed 3 times. So I will put this statement multiplied by 3. So that key and that associated value with that particular key in that list will be replicated 3 times. So let me demonstrate or show you this so that so that it is clear, right? So this is what is the definition of a list. A list is a value that contains multiple values in an ordered sequence, right? Separated by comma. Comma is usual separation operator, and that's how you use the retrieve the values of index, the values of lists using index. So let me demonstrate. Yeah, so this is list concatenation and list replication. As you can see, this is one list. Let me show you. This is one list, and this is another list, which is inter concatenated using a plus operator. Right. So this is a simple example of a concatenation of a list. That is nothing but adding up two small lists to make a big list. And then replication can be simple example, that is XYZ here has been added 3 times into the same list, making the list more bigger. So this will add more redundancy to it. So more replicas of that particular key or the item in that particular list. Let me demonstrate one example of slicing also. So, okay, here is the example of sorting. I can see, but you have to make sure that you write one single program to demonstrate this whole thing. This simple example from the textbook, this same example from the textbook will not be appreciated. You have to write one program which will demonstrate all these 4 tasks: concatenation, replication, sorting, as well as the slicing. So let me demonstrate. I think slicing, you must have already recalled it by now. Slicing, what we do in the slicing is we just mention the starting value as well as the stopping value for that particular item in the list. Right, from, for example, let's say we have 4 values in a particular list. So I want to slice that particular list from 1 to 2. That's it. So yeah, here is the simple example of slice. Yeah. So we had an example of this wherein we have 4 keys, sorry, 4 items, we can say, that is cat, bat, rat, and elephant, and I want to slice, let's say, from 1 to 3. So starting from 1, I want to slice till 3. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. In that case, when we execute the slicing command for it, you can see that, okay, let me consider the previous example so that it is more clear. Starting from 0, slice the list unless it reaches 4 is what is the meaning of this slice. So slice operation is done using this colon operator, colon symbol. So it starts from the 0. 0 is this, 1 is this, 2 and 3. So it starts from the 0, it considers all the element till 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Now when it reaches 4, it has to terminate it, but since there is no 4, it will end up printing the whole of our list again. But consider the same example now. When we start with 1, it will eliminate 0, start with 1, 2, and when it encounters 3 value, it will terminate the list. So that's why you cannot see the third or the element which is at the third index. The item which is at the third index will not be printed. So from 1 till it reaches 3. So 1 to 2 is actually getting printed. So that's how the slicing works. So I hope that should be enough in order to make you understand that. But you have to make it working into a single program, which will demonstrate all these 4 workings. That is concatenation, replication, slicing, and sorting. So as long as you have mentioned your own Python program, well and good, you will be awarded marks for it. Then I already told you what are the dictionaries, how dictionaries are different from the lists. You have to write the Python program to demonstrate the keys, values, and item methods. And also you have to write a note on mutable and immutable data type. So you can say that how dictionaries are different from list, maybe for 3 marks. Then writing your program to demonstrate keys, values, and items. These 3 things maybe for 2 marks each, 6 marks, and your whole structure of your Python program 1 mark maybe. So that makes 7 marks for this question, 3 marks for the how dictionaries are different from the list, and remaining 5 marks to write a note on mutable and immutable data types. So let me show you this example. Uh, Simple key value pair that we have seen in the dictionary data type, right? So this is a simple example of how a key can be retrieved using a for loop. So that's using for loop or not to be used, that is up to you. But you have to retrieve the values of a key and the key as well as the value of that particular key, and also the items method. So you should be in a position to demonstrate how these key method works, values method works, and also how the item method works. So let me show you where is the item method. So item will help you to get the key as well as the value. So here is the simple example, spam.items, right? So it will help you fetch the key also, which is age in this example, and the value for that particular key, which is 42. So item is nothing but that particular pair of a key and a value is the item. So you should demonstrate one example in the same program. You should demonstrate the example to invoke a item method, the keys method, as well as the value method, right? So as long as you are doing that, you will be awarded full 7 marks for this program. And mutable and immutable, I already told you. Immutable and mutable. Mutable is list. Simple example is list data type, which can be changed. The values can be changed, right? The values can be referred using indexes, wherein the indexes in the case of list are mandatorily be numbers or integers, whereas in the indexes in the dictionary can be uh, any variables also, any name also, no, and not just numbers. And immutable is something which is cannot be changed, right? The values cannot be modified. So I hope the you have better clarification now what, and maybe you must have got an idea what mistakes you have probably made in your eye, right? So anything that is more clarification is needed from for any particular question from your side. Anything that you want to ask? Or any particular doubt that you have with respect to IA questions that you have attempted. I think after today's lecture, I think it should be clear that how much content to be written for a particular question depending on the marks allocated to it. Okay, and what is the way to prepare for the IA as well as final examinations. Yeah, quickly tell me any doubts or any more clarification that you need. Or any part that I have missed out and you want to convey. Okay, so if there are no doubts, then that's fine. Let's see. Hope for the best. After correcting your eye, I shall let you know the marks. I've still not corrected all of them. Many more are remaining. So I hope you have done better. and side by side you are keeping note of whatever important things that we are discussing. Whatever you feel important, please make a note of it. Whether they are tips uh, from the examination point of view or the important aspects that we learn here in the class in the lectures. So I hope you are making note of it, and those notes you have to submit when you come back here in the form of your assignments, right? So I hope uh, you are getting, you are understanding whatever we are discussing here. But if you have any doubt, anything that you want to convey, any approach that you want, you feel is better and you want to incorporate, you can bring it to our notice, and we will try our best. Uh, Suitable approach will be mentioned, will be made use of. Okay. So if there are no further doubts, we shall conclude the lecture. Thank you. You can leave.